morning, everyone. I'm Wojciech Ponikiewski, the ambassador of Poland, and I'm very happy to be here. And I have to say that I really enjoyed the speech by José Manuel Barroso, because I think that he touched a number of points which are true and important for this discussion, which we will be having for those 2 days. And I have to say that I completely agree with what he was saying, which is not always the case, so that's particularly pleasant. But let me start my introduction remarks or my maybe more formal speech, as I'm supposed to deliver more formal speeches as an ambassador, and to say that that there are really true reasons to celebrate the enlargement, the 10th anniversary of the Eastern enlargement of the big bank. And even if a somber mood seems to have settled in and prevails in the EU, and that the economic growth is only flickering on the prospects for its consolidation in the near future, which seem far from certain, but the institutional development of the EU is viewed, and the institutional development of the EU is viewed with apprehension rather than being embraced as a vehicle for positive change. Even the principles of the internal market, like free movement of workers, are being put into question. We saw also on the last elections, on Sunday elections, that the Eurosceptic and anti-European parties, or I heard also the expression Europhobic parties, entered the European Parliament. And that they see and perceive the European integration as a source of practically every evil within the European societies and economies. But this is all to say that people seem to no longer recall what economic, social, and cultural benefits European integration brought about. No one pauses even for a second when crossing the border or jumping on a train from Milan to Berlin with only ID on him, that the long queues or a nuisance of traveling seem to be only of a distant past. No passports, no visas, no obligation for exchanging money at every possible border, or possibilities and opportunities to study abroad within Erasmus programs seem absolutely natural for all of us, and they seem as if they always existed. Maybe this is why the enthusiasm for the EU is much higher in Poland than in most of the countries, and especially of the countries of the old EU 15. And probably the reason is that Poles do not take those benefits those achievements for granted. We still remember the times when these great advantages were beyond our reach. For Poles, and I guess it's also true for other countries of the most recent enlargement, the process of entering the EU was something far from what is often called a return to Europe. We were always present in Europe, although cut from its main part, the one that was more affluent and first of all free. The meanders of history were such that the Iron Curtain descended on our part of the continent. The cruel destiny did not allow us to build a normal democratic and free market system in the post-war period. We were denied the participation in the integration process from its very outset. The accession to the European Union in 2004 was to rectify these ills. It was a natural step in a process of reunification of the continent and confirmation that we always were and are Europeans. Today, with despondency reigning over an upbeat attitude, it is not that hard to find Europeans who would easily blame a great deal of problems on the latest enlargements, and President Barroso also spoke about this. It is, however, difficult to find a more illogical and unfounded allegation than this one. But unfortunately, it is quite widely spread. This is why it cannot be emphasized enough that the impact of the Big Bang enlargement on the European economy, including that of the EU-15, was decisively positive. Just a few statistical data. For example, trade relations which evolved over the last decade. The export of the EU-15 to EU-10 almost doubled. The beneficial effect of the enlargement is even more clear when we look at the situation of the particular member states. The UK's export, for example, to EU-10 amounted to 2.2 billion euros in 1993, but in 2010 it reached 10 billion euros. In France, it increased from 2.7 billion to equally to 10 billion. In Germany, the magnitude of the increase was most spectacular. Exports went from 16 billion euros to the staggering 95 billion euros. So these are the data which really prove the economic advantages for the so-called old member states. The accession of new countries into the EU was also meant as an enlargement of the zone of peace and stability. The grave situation in our neighborhood is a proof and a clear demonstration of how crucial this process was and still is in terms of security aspects. When on December 13, 1981, General Jaruzelski, who passed away, by the way, this last weekend, imposed martial law in Poland, the impression that Poland would be stuck in the dark era for ages pierced menacingly through the minds of people of my generation, and not to mention the older ones, for whom it was even more tragic. After the overwhelming and extraordinary enthusiasm of the Solidarność period, which we often call the Solidarność Festival, which lasted for slightly more of a year, all hopes nearly collapsed. But at that moment, the most courageous among Poles did not give up. The civil society established a quasi-parallel underground state, preparing democratic elites to take over power at a more opportune moment. That moment came sooner than many hoped. And as President Giorgio Napolitano wrote in his article published on 27th of April in Il Messaggero, it was not coincidence that the first crack in a wall dividing the two blocks appeared not in Berlin in November 1981, but in the spring of the same year in Poland. It was Poland where the roundtable talks, to the surprise of everyone, led to the first partially free elections and the victory of Solidarność in June 1989, almost exactly 25 years ago, writes President Napolitano. Consequently, as a result of that breakthrough, some years later, the Big Bang enlargement was made possible and the actual reunification of the continent took place. And what happened during the last 10 years? What's the upshot of this renewed united Europe? First of all, I would say that Poland has made rather good use of the opportunities offered by the EU membership. We have become a leader of economic growth after joining the EU. Our GDP grew 48.7%. In 2009, Poland was the only country in the EU to avoid a recession. In 2003, Poland's GDP per capita in purchasing power standards parity amounted to around 49% of the EU 27 average, while in 2013 it reached almost 67%. So within the 10 years of our presence in the EU, also a lot of jobs were created. Polish entrepreneurs created practically 2 million jobs. In the period 2005-2012, the number of people at risk of poverty or social exclusion decreased by 7 million. Poland has been rising gradually but systematically. For instance, in the competitiveness ranking, it has moved up from the 48th place in 2004 to 33rd place in 2013 among the World Competitiveness Center report. Also, the credit rating agencies upgraded continuously Poland's ratings. Poland has also reaped benefits offered by the EU single market. In 2013, we exported to the EU almost 3 times as many goods as before joining the EU. Thanks to the fundamental freedoms of the internal market, Polish companies have exported to the EU goods worth almost 900 billion euros in the past 10 years. Polish entrepreneurs have turned a 2.9 billion euros trade deficit with the EU member states in 2003 into trade surplus of almost 8 billion euros in 2013. More than 120,000 Polish students studied at the universities of other EU member states, and around 37,000 Polish academics lectured there in the framework of different exchange programs. Over the last decade, Poland has become also a true construction site. EU funds have played a major role in helping the country modernize faster. After deducting Polish contributions, we have received as much as 61 billion euros since our accession 10 years ago from the EU budget. Due to those funds, partially, almost 1,500 kilometers of motorways and expressways have been built. Over half of Polish schools, close to 20,000, have been equipped with computer labs. So these are just a couple of examples of the benefits with the EU enlargement brought to Poland. But I think it won't be an exaggeration to say that geopolitically speaking, the EU with Poland and other Central and Eastern European countries on board is a more secure place and has a potential to play a much more significant role in the world scene than ever before. Poland has also earned its respect within the European institutions. We are a self-confident and responsible partner which assumes its responsibilities within the EU in its relations with international actors outside the Union. Poland's experience, enthusiasm, and dynamism are bearing fruit for all, and we can proudly say that the past decade of our EU membership was a classical win-win situation for us and for the EU, which I hope you will be able to prove during those debates and in the coming days. So, ending with this optimistic assumption, I wish to thank the organizers and Mrs. Bridget Laffan and Alexander Treschel and the Polish committee Polish committee at the European University Institute, and in particular Mr. Michał Matlak and Tomasz Woźniakowski for their involvement in the organization of this event, which we are happy to support. And this event seems not only timely, but hopefully brings really some interesting ideas in terms of better understanding the importance of this EU enlargement. So thank you very much, and all the best.